Hey guys, what's going on? It's Gheesling. I have a special episode for you today. They're all special, but super excited to dial in today. Before we get into the episode, thank you guys so much for tuning in, whether you're from Skokie, Illinois, Rasputin, Arizona, Chandler, Arizona, somewhere outside the Midwest. I appreciate you guys dialing in. I want to do something a little bit different. It's been an interesting week journal-wise in terms of things happening, but I wanted to bring on some individuals who've been pivotal to the community and to the Twitch show. And in case you're unfamiliar with, I'm bringing on a handful of our moderators from Twitch chat. So basically, if you have no context what that is, during a live show, there are, hundreds of people that are tuned in, and sometimes new people come in and they don't understand maybe the culture of the show in terms of that we keep it, family friendly and things like that. And the moderators play a significant role in keeping things on track and making sure that the culture or standards of the show or how, things are handled in terms of how we interact with each other. They have a really, it's a thankless, tough job because essentially they all start out as members of the community that were essentially asked to do a little more. So to boil it down in a super simple sense, I'm the good cop. They have to be the bad cop. So if I set the rules and standards, and I'll talk with them, in Discord and say, hey, here's I think we have a couple guidelines. As a matter of fact, let me read you the guidelines. And it's not guideline. It's moderator guidelines, but it's just an extension of the community. And basically, here's how it works. It says the first thing they do is the first thing they do if they see like an infraction or something wrong is they issue a general warning to the chat, not mentioning any names, and a private DM to the individual. This is a good general reminder for everyone. The second warning, so this is essentially what their code is they have to follow. The second warning is a private DM from a moderator, and then also to tell me so I can intervene. And the third strike, the person will be banned. And these are the guidelines for Discord moderation, but it's not that different for Twitch. And so pretty much based on that's the guidelines they're given. And all these moderators have been selected because they've been positive members of the community. They've been dialed in. They've been helpful. And just to me, what they represent is a general, and they're all so very different. And I'm excited we get a chance to talk to them individually here. But they're all so very different, but represent what's best about the community and what we look for in the community. So with that being said, we're going to bring on the first moderator now. All right, super excited to bring out our first moderator, Brett Anadoluski. Brett, can you tell me how to properly pronounce your Twitch name?
It's Britannia Deluski.
Okay, before we get into ask you some questions, what is the story behind your Twitch name?
So it's a reference to Aqua Teen Hunger Force, an old Adult Swim cartoon.
Okay.
So I set the Twitch profile up to watch a friend stream something, and the two of us were really into Aqua Teen, so I just picked something at random.
Which character is it? Because I always think of it as like the meat character, but it's not the meat character.
No, it's Carl, the abrasive neighbor.
What? It's as a human character?
It is, yes, pretty much the only human character.
Okay, cool. So Brett, tell me your story. Like, what do? Do you work? You go to school, or what's your individual story?
Yeah, so I manage a small store in a sleepy rural town, so it's not too exciting. It's like an independent sandwich shop.
Okay, cool. And then without like self-doxing, what region of the world are you from?
I am from Northern England.
Okay, so Northern England. So let me ask you this: do you remember when you found Twitch and how you found it?
Yeah, actually, it was Twitch Plays Pokemon was what got me in initially. So it was, that was 2011, 2012 or something. A long time.
And then did you see it like on a gaming website or how, do you remember how you found
word
it?
of mouth. One of my friends was just, we were into Pokemon at the time. And he was just like, this thing's going on this website called Twitch. So I thought I'd log in and see what was.
And then from there, kind of the rest of the history, then did you you watch them I was gonna call it Pokemon Go. You watch some Twitch plays Pokemon. So that was like back in the day. In case people don't know, for context, they had Pokemon set up so it was controlled by Twitch chat. It was a really really big event at the time and brought a lot of clearly someone like Brett new eyeballs to Twitch. So after you watched this chat play Pokemon Go, do you remember your initial thoughts? Like, what is live streaming, or how did you like parse all that?
Yeah, I mean, at first it was just fascinating seeing like so many people interacting while watching a game. And I mean, like, I think that's a pretty common experience, but I used to just sit in my friends' rooms and watch them play computer games. It was a very sort of similar experience, but on a mass scale. It was really interesting seeing that in an official sort of, a platform set up for it.
Yeah. So then what's your history with gaming? What did you like? How long you been playing, and what did you start with?
Oh, probably mid late 90s. I think the first game I played was like Doom when I was way too young to be playing it. But then like pretty much strategy games from a young age. That was the bread and butter.
Okay, cool. All right, so let me ask you this. So you went from watching Twitch, somehow you found our channel, and then I'm asking you now, how did you find our channel?
It's pretty much through the NLSS, because I know
Okay.
you were from the very early days on doing segments there, and I remember seeing you a lot. And at some point, I just thought, may as well check out the channel itself.
Okay. And then how did you become a moderator in your own opinion, like in your words? How did this happen?
Yeah, I was thinking about the specific instance. I don't remember what game you were playing. It would have been like 7 or 8 months ago. The only thing I remember about it is you had asked if anybody in the chat, because there were no moderators around, knew how to operate the vote bot.
Hmm.
And I think I said no, and that was the message you clicked on to turn me into a moderator. That's the only detail I remember.
So, and I preface this whole interview and podcast saying is that all the moderators to me are a representation of what's great about the community and what to me is, I don't want to say ideal member of the community, but just how people act. From what I always remember is, and it's different now because once you're a moderator, then it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like. I make fun of my friends, and things change a little bit when you're moderator. But for me, I always knew you were extremely helpful. You helped a ton of people. You're always very positive, and to me, that's what stood out about you. In particular, I think a lot of stuff with Tarkov too. You were very helpful to a lot of people. So for someone that's unfamiliar with what a Twitch moderator does, in your words, and not like what you think a Twitch moderator does, but can you tell us what you do during the shows and how you physically do it?
Yeah, so it's I guess the sort of main purpose is to sort of create a nice environment for people to watch the stream, and make sure the chat is the sort of place you want to actually talk and listen to what people are saying. But other than that, a lot of sort of operating the bot, keeping the sort of commands up to date and stuff.
Okay, and when you say like keeping commands up to date, like what for someone who has no idea what that is, how would you explain that to me?
Right. So the one that is takes up most of my time is keeping the Tarkov records up to date, because there's bot commands that keep track of wins, losses, and gold chains, the important statistics, and just keeping that up to date so that we know where we are in the league table.
Got it. And so you have a lot of time updating the loss side of that record, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so, but that's probably true.
All right, let me ask this. For you, what's the most challenging part about being a moderator?
I think it's probably judging what is and is not acceptable, because I think there's obviously black and white cases where people will come in and they're just looking to cause trouble, but it's to the border cases where it's clearly somebody's either having a bad day or they don't know what they're saying might offend people. It's working out what to do about people like that, I think,
And so
because I mean a lot of the time they are one comment away from just being completely fine.
so when something like that happens, because I talked a little bit on the front end of the podcast about, we've talked about you guys have general guidelines of what to do and what not, but when you make that decision, because I always say that, all the moderators are an extension of me because I trust you guys and you guys are all dialed in. But when going through making that decision, how do you decide what to do when it comes, push
Yeah.
come to shove?
Well, I think a lot of it's about intention. I think you can tell after you've had a few words with somebody whether they just don't understand or whether it's a sort of temporary mood issue that's causing it. So sort of breaking down whether you can do anything to bring this person back around. to sort of acceptable standards, really.
And in your experience, judging or at least recalling the instances where you've had to do that, how would you say the majority of them have worked out?
Well, I think for the most part, it's misunderstanding. And if you have a talk with somebody, I think most people, just want to get along and don't want to offend anyone. So most of the time, if you just have a word, it sorts itself out.
Okay. Yeah, and I think you if you don't know, you're kind of seeing the demeanor of Brett, and that's exactly what we're looking for. We're not looking for someone to, someone may say something off color. We're not looking for someone to pounce on them. But it sounds like you go through an examination of understanding about, hey, what is this person actually doing? So let me ask this, Brett. What is the most enjoyable, if anything, because I know it is a thankless job, what is the most enjoyable part about being a moderator?
It's going to sound a bit sappy, maybe, but it's being able to sort of maintain the atmosphere that I sort of hung around the channel to enjoy. Definitely before I was a moderator, it's nice to hang around in a sort of pleasant space where everyone's being nice to each other. And now on the other side of it, being able to sort of enforce that. It's a bit of a rough word for it, but make sure that is always the case is very satisfying, I think.
Yeah, do you ever feel like because this I see it as like good cop, bad cop. I always feel like I'm the good cop. Do you ever feel like a bad cop, or is it? Do you ever feel like, because at its core, you're still a community member, but at the same time, you're a community member that, when the time comes, you have to lay the law down, and you're like the bad guy. But like, do you ever struggle with that at all, or is it?
No, I mean it's all about context. I think the situations that rise where you need a bad cop, it doesn't feel too difficult to be the bad cop.
And then that would be like in a case when someone's like outwardly like doing
completely
something
out of line. Yeah.
Got it. All right, cool. And then my last question for you is: have you taken anything away from the experience or learned anything, either good or bad, about yourself or anything online? If I say, hey, Brett, because how much I appreciate everything you do, but it is somewhat thankless. But have you taken anything away, whether learning internally, externally, or about people or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a bit weird, but like, it's good practice being polite consistently, because I find it a lot easier in my it finds it a lot easier in my day-to-day life to sort of maintain that positivity and stuff when in my downtime that's the environment I'm immersed in.
So
and I feel like I like that more than I thought I did. That sort of calm.
yeah, let me ask. So in your day-to-day life, you said you manage like a sandwich shop.
Yeah.
And how much of like your day-to-day in your real life job is it similar to being a moderator in some contents, or like what do you physically do on a day-to-day as a manager of a sandwich shop?
Yeah, no, there is some overlap actually. Yeah, definitely the moderation has helped in terms of just being able to. It's practice talking to people, from a vague position of authority, being used to being able to sort of, I don't know, just talk to people on that sort of level.
Cool. Is there, Brett, as we wrap things up here, is there anything that you want to tell people about, maybe that they don't understand about being a moderator, something that, or maybe something like I wouldn't think of, or because I know like a lot of work goes into it, and you're like the boots on the ground. Is there anything that sometimes you do that people don't see, or maybe that you could peel back the curtain at all on, anything like that?
Well, I think if you turned up 15 minutes before the stream and watched the pre-chat, you'd see pretty much everything I do behind the scenes. Yeah, it's basically just being in the community and around the community, so you know what's going on. I think that's the main sort of behind the scenes thing. Is just making sure I'm.
Okay, and it doesn't happen too often, but every now and then, someone pop in and say, hey, Dan, how do I become a moderator? In your best estimation, Brett, what advice would you give to someone who wanted to be a moderator in a channel?
I think you said it yourself. It's people who are part of the community. I think when anybody looks for moderators in the sort of Twitch community, what they're looking for is people who have been there a while and really understand what's going on. So if you arrive at a channel and you want that position, just get used to the place. Make sure that you do know what's going on. You know what's being looked for, and then just keep.
Cool, Brett. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I I don't say it enough, but I truly appreciate all your hard work and everything you do to make the community the special place that it is. So, and thanks so much for coming on the podcast, man. I really appreciate it. So
No problem at all.
if you guys see Brett Anadoluski in a live show, show him some love because the moderators don't get enough. But thanks so much, Brett. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, super excited to bring on our next moderator. She goes by Fury Plays Cello on Twitch. Thank you so much for coming on, Fury.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So, before we jump in, tell me the story behind your Twitch name.
Well, it's pretty simple. My name is Fury, and I play the cello.
So, let me ask you this for people who don't know what the cello is. It's like, can I explain it in first grade and you tell me how wrong I am?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
It's like an oversized violin.
That's exactly it. That's it.
Okay, is that offensive to say to a cello player?
No, I don't think so. They're in the same family. So, they're all within the same violin family. So it's totally fair.
Okay, so how did you get started playing the cello?
Oh, gosh. So in public school where I live, you get to pick an instrument when you're in the third grade.
Okay.
And everyone picked the violin. So I was like, I'm going to pick the cello. And it just stuck.
Was there like a secondary instrument you're like, I could have selected this one, or were you like cello 100% of the way?
Yeah, they wouldn't give me the French horn because they said I was too small.
French horn, that's like the one that's almost like a U shape, kind of with a lot of circles on it. Is that right?
It's like a big circle with a big bell on the end.
Okay. They wouldn't give it to you?
No, they said I was too small to hold it up. I don't think that's true, but
So technically you could be Fury Plays, what's it called, French horn or French trumpet?
yeah, French horn.
So you started it in grade school. Did you ever take a break, or from third grade on you just played it?
No, I just kept going. Yeah, my parents got me lessons. I was super grateful for that because not everyone gets that sort of opportunity. And I just kept studying, kept taking lessons, kept getting better and better, working hard.
Did that at any point, did that feel like work to you, or did you just love it so much it wasn't work, or in somewhere in between?
I mean, it always feels like work because you're always, you're working hard to, refine your craft. But I love it at the same time. Even though it's work, it doesn't feel like a burden.
Okay, so speaking of work, so this is, I'm asking. So my question to you is, do you work or you go to school? And if so, what do you do?
I do. I work. Now I teach the cello. Fury teaches cello. And I'm a personnel manager for an orchestra here in town.
Okay, so let's talk about the first thing. So you teach cello. So you teach like private lessons, or do you teach in a school, or what do you do?
Yeah, I teach private lessons. So when the kids get out of school, I turn up at their houses and I give them lessons for half hour, 45 minutes, or an hour.
And then in terms of like how busy you are, is like, because my understanding of the cello is it's not a super common in terms of like violin lessons, right? Like cello's got to be, it's a little bit more rare than violin, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I fill out my schedule. I also teach piano and violin, so that helps a lot.
Okay, cool. So you do that, and then you said you manage personnel at an orchestra. What does that mean to someone like myself who has no idea what that means?
Yeah, so if you go to see a symphony orchestra and you see all the musicians in front of you, you got to wonder, like, how did they all get there? And that's my job.
Is like you get them there?
Yep. I send emails and I send, texts and phone calls, and I hire the musicians for the whatever concert is happening.
But how do you know that they're like good or that they'll play well together?
I do receive a lot of resumes and a lot of playing samples, so I have to vet them, but a lot of it is also word of mouth. And sometimes somebody shows up and they're not up to task, and that's also my job, is to let people go sometimes. Like,
so they'll come to an audition or practice? Like, have you already hired them, or they come to?
They'll come to a rehearsal, and after every performance, I have a debrief with the conductors, and we'll kind of talk and get feedback, and either musicians will get called back again or they won't.
And then when they don't get called back, like, you just not call them back, or do you say, hey, like, it's not me, it's you? Or like, what do you say to them?
Well, I usually just don't call them back. And if I get a follow-up email saying, hey, I haven't heard in a while, I'll follow up with them and let them know what's going on.
And then will you give them feedback on like, hey, your C sharps were a little flat, or like, what do you tell them?
Absolutely, 100%.
Like, you'll give them like direct feedback like that?
Yep, you got him.
Wow. That, I mean, so for you to be able to do that, I mean, this is my only expression I can come up with, so don't take offense. You're not a one-trick pony. You have to know essentially what sounds good from each instrument in the orchestra.
Yeah, and it's hard because I also play in the orchestra. So a lot of the time I'll be playing in the section and I'll put my cello down and I'll like go leave and listen and try to like hear the whole orchestra, and then I'll go back to my seat and keep playing just so I can get like a bigger picture.
Well, that leads me to one of my favorite things, and I do this with Fury a lot during the show, is there'll be like a random song, and I'll be like, hey, you know, and it's like half joking, but also I kind of want to like see if she knows. I'll be like, hey, what key is this song in? And within like 20 seconds, she'll be like, oh, this is whatever, C sharp, or I don't even know what. And like to me, that's, you know, I just find that incredible. So I know we're getting a little off the beaten path here, but is that for you? Is that something you're born with, like that ear, or is it training, or is it a little both? Or
I think it's a little bit of both. And I mean, it's resin because when you ask me those questions, I'm sitting in my office and my keyboard is right next to me. So I can click it on and, you know, play a quick scale on the keyboard and be like, oh yeah, it's D minor. A lot of your songs are in D minor, by the way.
Yeah, but even with that, like you still have to like know what to play and then still have the ear to match it up, and to do that, like, and I'm not even, for people that are listening to this, like, it's not like a 5-minute thing. It's like bang bang, and I'm like, how in the world? But anyway, so I always get a kick out of that because, whenever I know whatever you say, like, it's not made up either, you know. But
no, I try to give you the real answer. The only thing that ever flooded me was Goose Game.
Oh, because it's, what is that? Like, what is that? Because it's, the music in that is, how would you describe it? Orchestral?
So it's like it's written in the style of a composer named Claude Debussy, and he used a lot of pentatonic and whole tone scales in his writing. So it was really hard for me to pin that one down. That wasn't an easy, C sharp major for you.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna pivot this from C sharp major to Twitch. So my next question for you is, how did you find Twitch?
Oh wow, actually, couple years back, I actually was poking around on Twitter, and I wasn't really active on Twitter at all. But I was like, "Oh, who's this? What's my good friend Justin up to?" And it actually turns out that a childhood friend of mine, HC Justin, was streaming on Twitch, and I started watching, and like I was like, "This is the best thing ever!" And I was just hooked.
And like and I don't want to like call Justin out, but when you started watching, is it how you remembered Justin as a kid, or was it different? Or
yeah, that's Justin. He's the same person. Yeah.
So you essentially, for a little while, at least grew up with HC Justin.
Yeah, when we were, I want to say like in our early teens to like our 20s, we were like BFF.
Would you guys like play games and stuff together?
Close. He would play games, and I would sit next to him and watch.
So basically Twitch, like real life Twitch.
Yeah, basically. And I used to tell him, like, imagine if you could get a job playing video games, because he's so entertaining and so good at, like, he used to play, like, Counter-Strike and stuff like that. And I was like, he's so good. I imagine if he could get a job playing video games, and here we are.
That's crazy, because I knew that you were a part of Justin's community, but I didn't know that you actually, like, grew up with him.
Yeah, we were close.
So, okay, so you go to Twitch, you start watching him, and then my next question is, how did you end up, in your own words and in your own estimation and in your explanation, how did you become a moderator for our channel?
Well, I found your community. Well, no, here, I found Justin. I found the NLSS. I found you. And your infectious enthusiasm and positivity.
Your job's not under fire right now. No matter what you say, you're not gonna get fired.
No. It's the truth. And your community was so welcoming that, you know, I felt really comfortable, you know, chatting. I'm a big lurker everywhere I go, but I felt really comfortable chatting and making friends with people, joining the Discord. And I just hung around, and I guess you, after a while, just asked me if I wanted to be a mod, and I was like, absolutely, 100%.
And so, but in your like estimation, before I put you on blast, like, why do you think that is? Why do you think you got asked to be a moderator?
I don't know. I'm really active, and I kind of got into the whole, like, to something I love about the community is that everyone that joins gets welcomed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was like the first step. I was like, oh, it's such a cool thing to have somebody join the community and make them feel welcome immediately. And I just wanted to be a part of that.
Well, and so I preface the whole podcast in saying, that, what you do is a thankless job, but at the same time, for lack of me being eloquent with words, all the moderators represent to me what's best about the community in their own, everyone's so different, but represent, it's an extension of what I, hope the community to be, and what the best part is. And for me, when it came down, to ask you to be a moderator, it's what you said is exactly what happened. You're always there. You're always positive, always friendly, always really welcoming, and represented, what the community is about. So to ask you, and whenever I ask someone to be a moderator, I'm like, at that point, like, it's not a question for me of, are they going to be good? It's just going to be like, hey, do they want to do it or not? Because my next question is for you is, how did you balance, and maybe it wasn't an issue, being like, a community member, and then all of a sudden, you're a little bit, sometimes have to be good cop, bad cop. Like, was that an issue for you, or how did you handle that?
It was a little bit of a learning curve. I think when you asked me to be a mod, I had mentioned like, I'd never moderated anything before. I'm really nervous. But once I kind of got used to the whole idea of like, okay, now instead of just a community member, I'm somebody that people are going to look up to. It made it a little bit easier to understand. So it kind of, lead by example sort of thing made the most sense for me.
And then in your experience doing this, 'cause you've been doing it for a while now, what has been the most challenging thing for you to be a moderator, in the community?
I think the most challenging thing is when somebody in Twitch chat doesn't get it. They don't get what the community is going for and what it represents and how they should behave. And that can be frustrating for me, because for me, it's like so easy. It's like, how do you not see what's going on here? But helping those people kind of understand what the community is about is the most important part.
And then, in your opinion, when someone doesn't understand, what's like, when you reach to your toolkit, or when you reach that moment of like when the rubber hits the road, how do you physically try to do that, to make someone understand? And then what do you do if they do? And then what do you do if they don't?
Well, I think a go-to that I use is just saying like, hey, hang around for a little while longer and
Mm-hmm.
you'll get it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you stick around and you just see what's going on, like, you'll get it eventually. And if people don't get it, I feel like they just don't come back on their own, honestly.
Yeah. No, and I think that's pretty accurate. It's just that, because you're like, your boots on the ground, you're right there, and I don't see everything, but I catch some stuff, and sometimes it's like, someone will come in and like start swearing or whatever, and you'll be like, hey, we don't do that here, and some people are like, oh, okay, and then you'll see him hang, and then some people are like, what the heck, and then they just disappear, kind of just exactly how I described it. But to me, the thing that stands out about you and the other moderators is just that it's consistent. It's, you treat everyone fairly. I don't want to say the same, because I think different situations, happen. But I think, across the board, you treat everyone fairly, and I don't think anyone in the community would have anything except positive things to say about you. And I think that's a great mark of being a great moderator, is that, you're respected, but everyone still, I mean, like, because it's such a weird thing, but it's like they like you, but if you say, hey, stop, they're still going to stop. And I think that's a hard balance to walk as a moderator, speaking from someone who has no moderation experience. But at the same time, I want to ask you, so for you, like, what do you enjoy most about being a moderator?
I like that I have a built-in excuse to be at almost every show. Well, I have to be there, I'm a mod. I can't, it's just, it really is. I would be
and
there
then let me
anyway.
ask you this, in terms of whether about yourself or dealing with people or anything, what, if you were to say, hey, Dan, this is what, or people listening, this is what I've taken away, this is maybe something I've learned through being a moderator, what would you say, like, that you've taken away from it, if anything at all? Maybe nothing at all.
Well, that's a really interesting question. I think what I've taken away from it is that you're not there alone. Sometimes it can feel like a little bit isolating, like if you're the only mod there and people are, acting up or whatever, but you're never there by yourself. And all of the, good stuff that I've learned and tried to bring to the community, I think I've learned from the other moderators. So the team is incredible, and I'm thankful to be able to moderate with all these other awesome people. So
All right, hey Fury. So I'm gonna pause this. Hold on. Okay, so you mentioned about like feeling isolated. What do you mean by that?
it's like if you're modding by yourself and somebody goes off on some, bad behavior or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, and then like we talked about earlier, like the person's just like not getting it,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, that can feel a little bad sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that you're there reading it. I know you see it. I know the community sees it. So even though it feels a little isolating, it's really not.
And when you say like bad, like do you feel like, hey, this person doesn't get it, I'm frustrated, or bad like, hey, like I'm trying to fight this one front war by myself? Like how would you describe the that feeling?
I don't want ever one bad apple to spoil it for the rest of chat. I know, people that are reading that can feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like part of my job is to make everybody comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So when something like that pops up, it's frustrating for me that I can't nip it in the bud right away.
No, no, I understand. I understand. And then, but you said at the same time, you said like, so how do you, when you're doing that, and in the case when you're the only moderator there, how do you counteract that internally in the moment so that
You
it's
just
not,
got to let it go.
is
Just got
that,
to let it go.
is that something you had to learn how to do, or is that something that you're naturally like inclined to do?
I guess I'm inclined to do it. At being a teacher, I kind of have like infinite patience. Stuff will bug me, but then you just got to move on.
Is there any crossover you see from like things you've learned as a teacher or vice versa as a moderator that helps you either way, like inversely with your students, or I don't know what the opposite of other inversely with, people in the chat?
Well, I don't know if it's any moderator stuff that I've brought to teaching, but I've brought stuff from your stream into my teaching. I love telling my students to run their sets. I love telling them to dial in. They have ball players too. Um, but I think it's just important when you're dealing with people just to realize that everybody's different
Hmm.
and everybody's going to process things differently. And you need to let people take their own time to figure out what's going on and just be really patient.
Cool. And then I kind of skipped over one really important question because, and I think I know part of it, but I've never asked you directly. What is like, when did you first get into gaming yourself?
Oh my gosh, my brother is a big gamer, so
Hmm.
I was just always around it. He's a lot older than me,
Hmm.
and so like we always had computers in the house. He was a big D&D guy, so it's just been part of my life forever.
And then I don't want to feed you lines or anything, but I have some understanding. I have very little understanding, but I have some understanding that you or your brother have some experience with Ultima Online.
Yeah, so Ultima Online. Well, HC Justin used to play Ultima Online, and I would watch him.
I
I would
didn't
go
know
to his
that.
house and watch it. Yeah, for a long time, I would go to his house and watch him play that. And then actually, my husband played it for a while too.
Really? Did you ever play with
Yeah,
him, or no? You watched him play?
no, he played Ultima way before we got together.
Oh, cool, cool.
So, but he had the disc when we were moving and cleaning everything up. I found the disc, and I was like, "This is really cool."
It's a relic. You have to save it. You can never
Yeah,
throw
we
it
saved
away.
it.
Well, cool, Fury. Thank you so much for coming on, and I don't get a chance to say it enough, but you're such a big part of the community, and I truly appreciate. I know the community does too, but I mean it when I say like you and all the moderators are an extension of me, and I trust you guys implicitly, and I can never thank you guys enough for the thankless job that you do. You deal with a lot of good stuff, but also some stuff that is definitely not fair is the right word. But it means a lot to me, and I want to thank you so much for coming on and for everything that you do for the show and for the community.
Hey, Dan, thanks so much for having me on the podcast. And I always say this, but thanks as always for having me in the community. Thanks. Really
No,
appreciate it.
thank you for being there, Fury.
Of course.
All right, super excited to bring in the next moderator, known as Sergeant_Shannon on Twitch. Shannon, first and foremost, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
And second question for you, how did you get the name Sergeant Shannon?
The sergeant part is just my initials, and then Shannon is just my first.
So you're dropping a bomb on me. Are you actually not Sergeant Shannon? Is it just like SGT Shannon?
The intention was for it to be sergeant because I made it up a long time ago, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, but it's just fine.
Do you have any like years down the road? Are you happy you went with Sergeant Shannon, or would you have had like, was there any like a secondary name that was close to being used, or were you always going to be Sergeant Shannon?
No, I think it was always going to be this. It's just pretty easy.
Okay, cool. All right, so I want I'm bringing on some of the moderators just to get an understanding of things you guys go through. But first, before we do that, can you tell me your story? Like, do you work? Do you go to school? What is your like day to day like?
Yeah, I am in school right now for biology.
Okay.
So my day-to-day life is pretty school heavy, pretty intense.
Okay.
But I think in the future I want to do zookeeping, so hopefully that'll happen, and my degree will help me get there, I guess.
Okay. And then to do like zookeeping, like what do you have to end up with in terms of a collegiate degree or anything like that?
I think you at least need a bachelor's.
Mm-hmm.
Master's is most ideal. So,
but like, what do you major in? Is there like, for someone who has no idea, is there like a zookeeping major or?
No, I think it's mainly just biology, zoology, anything related to animals or life sciences, I think is what is important.
Okay. And then in your understanding, to explain in like a first grade or as easily as possible for someone like myself who has like relatively zero knowledge of what a zookeeper does, what do they actually do?
Yeah, so from my understanding is they specify in a certain species or a certain group of animals, and they'll like clean the enclosures, they'll feed them, they'll make sure they have some sort of enrichment so that the animals don't get bored while they're in the zoo, just to keep them entertained, because otherwise that can be bad. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what has drawn you to that? Because I haven't met a lot of people like, hey, yeah, I want to work in a zoo, outside of like the Matt Damon movie. But like, why do you think you're drawn to that?
It took me a long time to come to that conclusion that that's what I wanted to do, but I've always loved animals. Like initially I wanted to be a vet, but then I realized that was just not for me. And then I thought about doing field work with animals, and then I had watched a bunch of stuff on zoos, and I was like, this is it. This is what sounds fun. And I think it would be really rewarding.
That's cool. And then you said like as a zookeeper, you like ideally you specialize in like a species or group. Do you have like one that you have an affinity towards, or one that you would be like, hey Dan, if this could happen, this would be where I'd want to work? Yeah,
I really like African animals like giraffes and lions and stuff, so I think that would be really, really cool to work with some of those. Or I also really like, so one of those two I think would be the most ideal.
You said African, and I couldn't hear the other one. A little bit of potato mic, but it's not a big deal.
Primates.
Okay, so like monkeys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so from African animals and to Twitch, how did you find Twitch? And do you remember roughly when it was?
I think I found Twitch from your YouTube channel back in early 2015, late 2014, something like that.
Okay. And so do you remember like the first time you went on Twitch and you're like, what is this? And like, what are people doing?
I think I knew about Twitch before that, but I never really had any channels that I watched. But I just remember coming to your channel and typing like hi in chat, being super nervous because I felt intimidated, but then everyone was so welcoming, and I think that's what kind of to me coming. Everyone was so welcoming and wonderful to not just me, but all the new people joining. It was really nice.
Well, it's a nice, wholesome story, Shannon. Thanks for sharing it. So then, let me ask this: in your estimation, in your experience, like, how would you say that you became a moderator? Like, if you were to say, hey, someone said, hey, how did you become a moderator in the channel? What would you tell them?
I would say that I was just being a respectful member of the community. I was obeying the rules that were in place, and I was really welcoming of others instead of being like, you can't, like you said something wrong, you can't come here or whatever. But I don't know, I think, and I was a frequent member at the time as well. Yeah, I don't know, just being really nice to people and being happy, I guess. I think having that kind of positivity is helpful with getting to be a moderator for me.
Yeah, I think you described it like perfectly, especially from my end, is that you're always someone that was there, that was very positive, extremely welcoming, and kind to people, and I talked about this early, and you guys, I brought in a couple moderators, but just to give you like the preface, you guys are all an extension of the community and me, and picking moderators, for the most part is pretty easy because like they're just a representation of kind of the best of the community, and you want what you want people to look towards and guide. So Shannon, thank you so much for doing that, because to me, I'll tell you this, and I told Fury this, is that the hardest part for me, is to ask someone to be a moderator, because, it changes some things. A lot of things changes as you go from being a community member that, I don't want to say like you enjoy all your time there, but now you have like some responsibility, and sometimes you have to be like good cop, bad cop. So my question to you is when you became a moderator, like, how did you deal with that? Like having to, because generally I would describe you as extremely inclined to be very kind and very nice.
Thank you.
Not that the other moderators aren't or anything like that, but you're like, I think that's how your DNA skews. And as a moderator, like you can be nice, but sometimes you have to be like, say things. So for you, I would say maybe that wasn't in your everyday personality.
Yeah.
So is that correct or incorrect?
No, I think that's definitely correct.
All right, but you still have to do that. So how did you kind of like, did you struggle with that? How did you kind of wrap your head around doing that, and how did you ultimately become good at doing that?
Yeah, I think I'm not a confrontational person. I don't like not being mean to people, but assertive, I guess. I don't like doing that. So I think initially it was hard. When I became a mod, the channel was a lot smaller. It's grown so much since then. And I feel like there was a lot of conflict back then because the people kind of knew what guidelines should be followed and everything. And then since then, I definitely had to cross that bridge and be like, hey, you're not supposed to do this. Like, just don't do it again, or repercussions will happen or something like that. I think it definitely took a lot of time and a lot of me stepping out of my own head, being like, you can tell people that they can't be doing these things and be a part of the channel because that's not what the channel is about, and stuff like that. So it just took a lot of effort for me to be able to scold people. Like,
I have a hard time thinking that you scold people, but so it's fairly difficult for you, at least internally at the start, to be able to do that. But you bring up a really interesting point that I haven't really thought about, is that like in the early days, it was a lot harder, because I'd say you were there when the culture of the channel as it is now was just starting to be established, and so I think it was 100% a lot more difficult back then, where now it's, there's more support and there's more people. And I feel like when you're not like, yeah, there's a lot of people in the community that understand how things are supposed to be versus, hey, Shannon, this is what we're trying to do. Can you help me do it?
Yeah.
But do you remember, like, were there any, like, without, you don't have to name names or anything, was there any, like, what has been the most challenging part for you looking back at how long you've been doing this? Like, what's been the most challenging part for you individually?
I think it's having to remind people multiple times that you can't post memes in the community images channel. That gets a little frustrating. Yeah, probably telling people over and over, you can't do this on the channel because that's not what it's about. That's not what we're here to do.
And then have you had to deal with any like individual pushback of like people challenging you or I don't want to say like directly or indirectly, like have you had to deal with any like one-on-one stuff that you normally, I mean, like as a moderator, as a non-moderator, you wouldn't have to deal with, but have you had any issues with that or anything?
No, I don't think so. I think if you tell someone that what they're doing isn't allowed, I think usually they're pretty respectful and they'll immediately stop and then maybe bring it up a couple weeks later just because they forget maybe. But for the most part, it's pretty, once you tell someone something, it's done for good. But the rare that it's not.
And then for you, Shan, what's been the most enjoyable, if anything, part about being a moderator?
There's lots of things that are enjoyable. But I think being able to sort of be a role model for the people and show them what the community is about, I think that's really rewarding for me, because that's what I kind of say a lot, is I want to spread positivity and happiness and make people smile 1 millimeter bigger.
Yeah.
I think that being able to facilitate that, I think, is really, really cool experience for me.
Well, and this has been like, I don't know, I've really enjoyed doing these interviews because like I just learned so much, and you kind of hit something on the head that to me is like what's way more important than you timing someone out or you like sending a message to someone is that you are just a representation of what the community is and what we want it to be. And so like to me, like someone can be good at like timing someone out or whatever, but if they're not like this, it's like your actions speak louder than your words, and I think you're like the epitome of that. And I think
oh, thank you.
When from my standpoint, like whether you are or you're not, I never know. Like I don't know, like you don't show if you're having a bad day, like I don't know. And I'm not always saying like it's good to like hide that, but as a moderator and member of the community, like I've never seen you be anything other than positive and I just truly appreciate everything you do for the channel, and it's so interesting because we talked to Brett and we talked to Fury, now we're talking to you, and you guys are all like so very different in terms of like your lives and where you're at and what you guys do, but there's like a common thread that you guys all share, and you're just positive people that or have such an impact on the community. I just want to, thank you so much for number one, coming on here, and two, for everything you do for the community. But I do want to ask you this: is there anything that you've learned about yourself or that you've taken from the experience as being a moderator, either good, bad, or indifferent?
Yeah, I think even before becoming a moderator, I think the channel has caused me to be a more positive person, have a more positive outlook on life, and not look at the small bad things that might happen and focus on the good things that are to come, or maybe the small good things that are happening in my life. And I've also learned that I can work decently under pressure, which is kind of cool. There's some pressuring situations.
In what way, like, have you like experienced some pressure in doing what you do?
There's been a couple instances where not very nice people, a very large group of not very nice people, have come and started to raid, and I think being able to take care of that was super pressuring, but I think myself and the other mods handled that situation very well, and other stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's like you get like an unexpected curveball flood, and it's like, you know, you either handle it or you don't. And I think that's cool. And you know, I can't always tell you, you know, what you're going to experience in the channel on the day to day in terms of like, you know, people outside the community. But, you know, I think you've done a great job in it. And it's funny because, you know, you forget stuff or, you know, you haven't thought about it in a while, but you know, I've just like talking to you, it's kind of like taking me back a little bit to like the early days. And like, there were like some one-on-one struggles, like, you know, because the community is much smaller. It's like you're fighting maybe like 10 small fires and 10 different directions as opposed to like one larger fire now. I don't know. It's just, it's been crazy. And you've been around for like a very, very long time in terms of Twitch. Yeah. But anyway, Shannon, you know, I just want to thank you again personally for everything you do and you know, being such a beacon for the community. And I know you guys don't get the proper thanks and you guys deal with a lot of stuff that isn't always easy, but you know, I truly appreciate it. And I know the community appreciates what you do as well. So thank you so much, Shannon.
Thank you. Yeah, it means a lot.
And if you come by the show and you see SGT_Shannon, make sure to drop some love for her because all the moderators don't get enough love. But Shannon, thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Of course. All right, guys, super excited to bring on our final moderator interview for the podcast. On the podcast right now is Yo Soy. Yo Soy, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. Just taking a break from football, getting a little chat with my main man, Dan, and excited for this opportunity.
So before we dial in, you got to tell me, what is the story behind your Twitch name? And I just call you Yo Soy. I know there's numbers on it. Is it Yo Soy 316?
Yeah, it's 612. I'm the story. Well, my friends just kind of call me Yo Soy. I don't really know where the nickname came from. Just kind of one of those random nicknames you pick up throughout high school. Okay. In Spanish, it does mean I am. Oh. So kind of as I was coming up, I'm from Minneapolis. I'm born and raised there, and I'm very prideful of the state of Minnesota and the city and everything. So 612 area code for Minneapolis. So it kind of reverts to I am Minneapolis or I am 612.
Oh, I never knew that. See, I always thought like yo and then like soy sauce.
That's kind of what we've gone with on the Twitch side of things. The
branding,
but yeah, exactly. But from the real lore of things, yeah, it's just kind of I am not as much as a Vikings fan. I'm Minnesota everything through and through, so it is go Gophers. But PJ Fleck, let's see what we can do, baby.
Row the boat, Sky Uma.
Exactly, Sky U.
Well, they're undefeated. I mean, like, if I were you, I'm rooting for the Gophers over the Vikings, but that's a different story. Anyways, so let's jump into this right away. So my first question for you is, so what's your story? Do you work? Do you go to school? What's your day-to-day like?
I do work full time. I work for a credit union. Okay. I work in a loan servicing area, so I kind of manage any issues people have with loans. I did go to school to be a firefighter.
Oh, really?
I got my college degree in fire protection. I did that paid on call back in Minnesota for about 3 or 4 years before I moved. And then once I moved out here to Washington, D.C., where I'm at now, it's kind of just been full time working and doing the Twitch stuff.
How come you stopped being a firefighter?
I really just want to do it full time, and what I was doing back in Minnesota was paid on call work, so it was a lot of like late nights versus also, you know, working full time and doing your full time job. So I've applied to a lot of full time positions, but it's just a super competitive field. You know, 3,000 or 4,000 people will apply for a 25 to 30 job opening. So it's just super, super competitive, and it just hasn't worked out yet to get the full-time gig. I'm still trying, but it just hasn't worked out yet.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I thought there, this is, my lack of knowledge. I thought there was like a shortage of firefighters. I didn't know it was that competitive because it's super dangerous.
It is, but theoretically anyone can do it. There's for big city jobs, it all comes down to the first step is the civil service test. So there's no prior background required. There's no training. My college degree gets me no further ahead of you if we both applied for Detroit fire department. It comes down to a written test. The top X% advance to the next stage. The next stage is a physical agility test. The top X% advance to the next stage, and then it's an oral interview. And then they make a list from there. And then usually each city will hire from that list for like 2 to 3 years. And if you get called and they offer you the job, good for you. If not, better luck next time.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that. So ideally in your career, you'd like to be a full-time firefighter, which in Michigan, I don't know how they do it otherwise, but isn't it like 3 days on, 2 days off? And then is it like, it's like a unique schedule, right?
Yeah, you usually work 3 to 4 days a week, but those days are 24-hour shifts. So even if you work, just 3 of them, that's still over a regular standard 40-hour, or even 2 days, that's over a standard 40-hour work week. So you do get paid to sleep sometimes, but you also, get paid to respond to a call at 3 a.m. So it's an interesting job, that's for sure. And
put your life online. Okay. So let me ask, let's pivot from fighting fires in real life to maybe fighting fires online. How did you first find Twitch?
So actually, I found Twitch through one of your YouTube videos. I'd never even really been on Twitch. I've been a gamer my whole life. I've been into playing video games. Tarkov is kind of my biggest video gaming passion, and one of your videos popped up on my recommended feed one day, and I watched it, and I jumped into the stream the next day, and NG Plus gifted me a sub, and I've been here ever since, man.
So you had no idea what Twitch was prior to seeing I'm guessing the end bumper of the video, or had you been on Twitch before?
I had never even been on Twitch before. I had no idea what it was, never heard of Twitch. Really, I just was into YouTube. That was kind of where I'd get most of my gaming content from.
Wow. And then do you remember coming over to Twitch and you're like, what is this? Is people chatting and talk? Do you remember your first experience on Twitch?
I definitely do, and I think I was really lucky in the sense that I came in, and my first experience on Twitch was with your community, because as well as anyone, your community is unbelievably welcoming to everyone that comes in, and that's not necessarily always the case on other channels. So for me, it was kind of a shell shock to come into an online space, which online places are majority of the time known for their toxicity and trolling and all that, and you come in to this space and there's all these people, hey, how you doing, welcome, yeah, let's play Tarkov. It just really kind of blew me away and really got me dialed into Twitch big time.
I didn't know that that's how it happened. That's on the selfish side of things, that's great intel. For me, it's I don't know. I guess you think about how big Twitch is, and then you still think there's still a lot of people that don't know what it is, because you came around about a year ago. Is that about right? Roughly?
Yeah, I think I'm at I think I just had the 13 months, and the first one was a gift from NG. So pretty much a year. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not you're talking 4 years ago. Twitch has been around for a while, but it's still, that's crazy to me. I thought you were gonna say, hey, you watch so and so play Tarkov, and then whatever. I didn't know that's how it happened. But so then let me follow this up with your next question. Is how did, in your words, if someone were to ask you, how did you become a Twitch moderator for the channel, what would you tell them, or what was your experience about how you recall, how you became a Twitch moderator?
I think it was just kind of for me, it was a cool opportunity, but it was a time and place where I was really dialed into playing Tarkov, and it was really when Tarkov, I feel on your channel, was really kind of starting to blow up in kind of that first sense. And when I say blow up, I mean bringing a lot of new people into the Discord, and that was kind of, it seemed like the first time when the Tarkov channel was always, constantly having people dialed in and always playing Tarkov.
Yeah.
And from what you told me, you said that you were kind of looking for someone that had a little more of a Tarkov sense, and that would, beyond in that area. So that, I think, was kind of my window, or my opportunity, to be able to hop onto your team and help out as much as I can. And I've just been thankful for the opportunity. It's been a really good time. I absolutely love it.
Dude, well, you've done such a great job, but let me ask this, for what you would explain to someone that has no idea what you do, how do you explain what you do as a moderator?
I think the biggest thing is we, as you say, we try to be an extension of you. So the biggest thing that I try to do is just do anything that I would think you would want done, whether it's, on a stream or whether it's in a Discord. And that's, whether it's kind of keeping an eye on chat and keeping, topics we don't want in there out, or certain, words we don't want in there out. But to me, I really think the biggest thing is just being dialed into the community and taking part and talking to as many people as you can and getting to know as many people as you can. And again, playing, as many games and being in VoIP as much as possible. To me, that's the most important part, because again, we are kind of an extension of you, and the more we can reach out, the more I think people can kind of feel in touch with the community.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's 100%. That's the thing I've told Brett and Fury and Shannon, is that you guys are 100% an extension of me and the community. And I feel like that's, that's been one of the most important things, is that I trust you guys implicitly. So if there's ever like any back and forth, it's like, to me, it's not even a question of like, say if there, and there really hasn't been, but say if there's ever an issue of like, a community member, he said, she said, versus a moderator, like, I'm backing you guys 100% of the time, because, you guys are, to me, the front facing part of the community of what people, be like, hey, watch what they do, because that's what the community is about. And you guys have done such a great job of that, and you have you as well, and in all different capacities. But let me ask you this: what for you, having been fairly new to Twitch and then being, hey, be a moderator fairly early into Twitch for you, what have you found that's the most challenging part about being a moderator?
I think for me, it's probably just the time thing, especially just for me, as I do work full time. So, I try to, a lot of it's, it's over my lunch break that I'm watching, and I'm being dialed in. And another thing, especially like with on Unity on Tuesday nights, I like to play games myself. So it's tough to be dialed in being a moderator when you are in a top 3 situation and in a PUBG game or something yourself or something like that. So for me, it's just kind of the time aspect, but we have such a good team that all works together. We all do really good job of kind of adding each other if we're not able to make a show or make something that other people be sure, hey, well, don't worry about it. I'll be there. I'll make sure that everything's covered. So it's never really been an issue, but that's probably the toughest part to at least stay dialed in on.
Gotcha. And then what do you enjoy most about being a moderator?
I think honestly, it's just the people that come to us for questions, and they can kind of rely on us to provide them with information or answer questions, especially from the Tarkov sense. Being a moderator, I think if they see my name in the Discord or something like that, they might think maybe I know what I'm talking about more than not. I don't know, maybe, but people.
No, you're not. You're not wrong. Like, I mean, there is a sense of responsibility, and also like I don't have another word for it, but other than like status, it's like, hey, if you see that, it's like, you're a community member, but also you're one that's been highly revered enough to be tasked with kind of keeping order. I don't think you're 100% right in that you are looked at differently.
Right. And for me, especially from the Tarkov sense, I got a lot of help when I started playing Tarkov. There were a lot of people that gave me gear and walked me through tasks and all that. So being a mod, it seems like a lot of people will ask me for, questions when it comes to Tarkov stuff. So I just kind of feel lucky in that sense that I get the opportunity to help more people, because people were able to help me, and I just love paying that forward. And it's so easy and fun to help people in Tarkov. Yeah. And there's such, little stuff that someone can play for a year and not know, and then they find out. You're like, oh, it's just so much fun.
Okay, cool. And then let me ask this, in terms of like anything that you've learned or taken away from the experience of being a moderator, whether anything you learned about yourself or from an experience, is there anything that sticks out to you?
I think the biggest thing is that taking on commitments that maybe are a little out of your comfort zone sometimes can be a good thing. It can be a good, especially like, you were saying, I was very new to Twitch, especially as being a mod, and I wasn't really sure what to do or what to expect what to do, and I wasn't necessarily that comfortable doing it immediately. But I'm really, really glad that I did it, and it's really, helped me branch out and explore a lot more of Twitch. So I think the biggest kind of thing was just kind of taking sometimes those opportunities. When you get a cool opportunity, even if you don't know much about it, sometimes you just say yes and you roll with it.
And speaking of Twitch, so you have went from not knowing about Twitch to watching Twitch to being a Twitch moderator to now you stream on Twitch. Tell me about what you stream on Twitch, when you stream, and then what made you get started.
Well, to what made me get started, again, not to sound cheesy or anything, but it was your podcast, man. Just kind of the behind the scenes and figuring out that it's not rocket science to run a stream. I mean, there's definitely a lot to it, but
if I can do it, yeah.
That's exactly what I say to people. So that was kind of my thing, and so I tried it. I play the games anyway, so I figured if I can hit, go live and put a webcam on, and maybe people will enjoy me being me. I don't really do any characters or anything like that. I just kind of be me. I play whatever game I really feel like playing, so I play a lot of different stuff. Lately, I've been playing a lot of Formula One. I've
seen you play some F1.
Exactly. So that's kind of been my thing. I do a fantasy football preview show on Sunday mornings, but mostly I do another duo show with a fellow Dial Nation guy, Scabbard, on Wednesdays. But it's usually
what
Fridays.
Time?
We do it every 5:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. We do a little duo show. We just kind of
you play Tarkov.
We do Tarkov, we do Apex. We just do a lot of stuff that involves banter and involves good times and friendship. He's a good friend of mine. He actually sent me a HOTAS so we could play Elite Dangerous together for free. Didn't charge me for it or anything. So very, very good guy, my man Scabbard.
Yeah, Scabbard, community Wednesday. Member. Yeah. So on Wednesdays you skirt home as fast as you can. You start from work and then you start the stream, or do you work?
Exactly. I get off at 4:30 and I'm home by about 5:05, and we start the stream right at 5:30, and then I eat dinner at like 9:45 that night. We just kind of stream all night. That's my one kind of weeknight stream where I really go heavy.
I didn't know that you stream with Scabbard. I'm going to check that out. But
yeah, it's a good time. We kind of try to take the model of the Team Unity thing. We kind of try to just, get together at least once a week with people we like to play games with and just dial in and have a good time.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, man. Yo Soy, thank you so much for coming on the channel. Where can people find your Twitch channel at?
Yo Soy 612 on Twitch, and every once in a while you'll see a Bro Soy or an Umray dropped in the Dan chat, so you can always click on that.
All right, Soy, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, man. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to the shows this week.
Dude, thank you so much for everything you do. I'll talk to you soon.
See you, bye.
All right, guys. This has been an extremely eye-opening experience for me. I think it's cool to see, I'd mentioned it throughout the podcast, but to see how different everyone is, different walks of life, different locations, just different stages of everyone in their life. And it's interesting to me to see how like all these people from that just have one thing in common. And I'm super grateful for everything they do, and 100% I can say without a doubt that these individuals have helped the direction of the channel, have helped the growth of the channel, and are a vital part of the show, and wouldn't be able to do it without them and their support. And so just one thing to think about too is, whether you watch our Twitch show or you're part of other communities, there's a lot that goes into it, and from the moderation standpoint, and they put a lot of time into it, and it's just super grateful. So if you see any of those individuals on the Twitch show, say just tell them they did a great job on the podcast, because they really did, and I'm super excited to have the opportunity to do this and to bring them on. And you never know what can happen. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a special one. Gotta be honest, this is one of my favorite ones we've ever done. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I will see you guys next Monday for the next podcast. I appreciate you guys being here, and have a great week.